Lord of the Rings of Power finally came out tonight, and I just watched it and I'm about to review it, but before I get into it, there's going to be some spoilers, not a lot. This isn't going to be a play-by-play, but I'm sure I'll delve into some spoilers. So go watch it first, and then come back and watch this. But also, before I get too deep into it, I want to let you know what type of viewer I am going into this review, going into this series. I am someone who grew up with Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson films. I watched The Hobbit. I loved those as a kid, and I continue to love those. I played with the Lord of the Rings action figures all the time. But when it comes to J.R.R. Tolkien and his source material and his novels, they're not something I've read. They're not something that I love because I haven't read them, but it's not a universe that I am addicted to, say like House of the Dragon, which, by the way, I'm also currently reviewing House of the Dragon, so check out those videos if you're interested. But with House of the Dragon, it's a universe I love. I consider myself to be more knowledgeable than the average person when it comes to that universe. But when it comes to the world of Tolkien, when it comes to the world of Middle-earth, I just consider myself a fan of the movies, though I have a lot to learn about the lore. So don't expect me to know all the names, the places, the locations, and the history. Also consider subscribing. I do TV show discussions, movie discussions, trailer reactions, the occasional video game video, that sort of thing. And if you like this video, consider, again, subscribing, because I'm going to talk about every episode as it airs, spoiler discussions, comparison videos, predictions, just random discussion topics, that sort of thing. So if you want to watch along with me, just enjoy the series, enjoy the universe with me, consider subscribing. But anyway, I just got done watching the very first episode, which was called Shadows of the Past. And I gotta say right off the bat, I can see where the budget went. This show looks absolutely beautiful. The entire opening sequence before the title card appears, like the first 10 to 15 minutes, was some of the best visuals I've seen in not only a TV show, but in movies in a long, long, long time. It looked like I was watching a movie, sitting here on my couch, watching it on my 4K TV right there. It felt almost like I was in a theater. That's how epic the scope is. That's how epic the scale is. That's how grand and beautiful the cinematography is. And the cinematography has such an amazing way of showcasing darkness and horror and torment, and then the light, beautiful aspects of this world. Like, for example, there's this shot early on in a battlefield with dead bodies and corpses of elves and orcs, and it's just bloody carnage and chaos everywhere. And standing in the middle of it is Galadriel, and there's like this light aura around her that brings this warmth, welcoming presence to the screen, surrounded by the darkness and the horror and the terror that I was mentioning earlier. And all that in one shot was just, my jaw was practically on the floor. The visuals look beautiful. And as most of you know, this is, as it's being, advertised, the most expensive TV show ever made. And I can really, really see it. This is going to be, 10 episodes long? I'm not sure. But it's going to be quite a bit of episodes long. And the budget is over $1 billion, I believe. That's more than Avengers Endgame. That's more than Avengers Infinity War. It's the biggest budget TV show ever. And I'm not complaining yet, because if the cinematography and the visuals look like that throughout the duration of this season, I think it's worth the money. But with that being said, how's the story? How's the plot? How's the writing? All these visuals are great. The cinematography is great. Looking at my TV screen as the episode is playing is great. But that's just surface level. You know what I mean? How good is the plot? How good are the characters? How invested are you going to be in what these characters are doing? What their motivations are? What their story is? Because that's what's going to keep viewers along for the long run. How's that? And to me personally, that's where I feel a bit mixed. But don't get me wrong. Overall, I absolutely was a fan of what I saw. First and foremost, I want to say Galadriel. Whenever she was on screen, I was fully invested. I love this character, and I'm really, really excited to see how this character goes in the future, where they go, where their character arc brings her. Her motivation, her plot, I absolutely loved it. Her brother got killed fighting Sauron, and she is on a quest for revenge. She is hunting down Sauron while the rest of the realm, while her allies, while those around her tell her that she's crazy, that the threat is gone, that the threat is long gone, that she's only killing those that follow her for no reason, but she is hell-bent on revenge, and I absolutely love this plot. Which brings me to my first sort of spoiler topic. At the end of the episode, Elrond convinces Galadriel to go back to the Undying Lands where she originally came from, which, by the way, Elrond is played by a young Ned Stark from Game of Thrones, which I think is cool. But anyway, Galadriel is on a boat going back to her homeland of the Undying Lands, and she decides to jump off the boat at the very end. She decides to return to Middle-earth. I don't know how she's going to cross the whole sea on her own, but she decides to return to Middle-earth until her quest is done, until her revenge is fulfilled, which I really, really love. And I feel like this is going to add a lot of weight to the end of Lord of the Rings. Because if you don't remember, at the end of Lord of the Rings, when Sauron is actually defeated, when Frodo destroys the ring, Galadriel and Bilbo and Frodo finally get on that ship and they finally go to the Undying Lands. And that's when her goal, her mission is finally achieved. But I also kind of feel like it's a double-edged sword. It'll feel more emotional that way. But then when you watch this series and then you go back and watch Lord of the Rings, it might feel kind of odd why Galadriel is so uninvolved with the events of Lord of the Rings when she's so hell-bent on defeating Sauron herself in this series. Maybe there's a lore reason. Maybe there's a plot reason. If there is, let me know. Because again, I'm not a Middle-earth historian. But with that being said, that was the only plot. That is the only character that immediately hooks me. Every other plot line going on, every other character that they're introducing has yet to really hook me. And that's something that's really, really disappointing to me because I wanted to be hooked into this universe, into this series with the very first episode. Like, for example, House of the Dragon. When that first episode aired, halfway through the episode, I loved every character. I knew where every character stood. I was invested and I was motivated. I loved every character halfway through that first episode. With this show, with Rings of Power, unfortunately, I can't say that's the case. Like, for example, the Harfoots it showed, they're kind of like these weird hobbit creatures. I don't really know what they are. Whenever it shows them, it comes across like they're trying to give you a Shire-like vibe to this universe where you see this violent war raging and then you see this sort of charming little group of people that just love life and seem very content, and it's supposed to feel homey, and it's supposed to be what you fight for, the good times that you remember as war progresses. But to me, I was just bored. I didn't really care about those characters. I didn't really care about their place in the universe, and that could change, and I really hope it's going to change. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating, and believe me, I think it is going to change. As we get more episodes, as the plot progresses, I'm sure I'm going to learn to love the rest of the characters and their plots and their places in the universe. But as of episode 1, that's not the case. And when episode 2 airs, I hope I am more interested in the rest of the characters. But going into it, I'm just going to be excited when I see Galadriel on screen, just for now. But again, don't get me wrong. Don't think this is me hating on the series. It's just me saying the characters have room to improve. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just incredibly thankful. As someone who grew up with the Peter Jackson films, as someone who grew up with the Lord of the Rings trilogy and loving this universe, I am just so happy to be back. I'm so happy to be back in a universe that I loved as a kid and I'm able to love again, in a show that seems like it's going to be amazing, that so far is really, really, really good, with beautiful visuals, a good arc to a really iconic character so far. What did you think about episode 1 of The Rings of Power? Let me know in the comments. And again, consider subscribing. I do TV show discussions, I do trailer reactions, I do movie discussions, the occasional video game video, and of course, every episode of Rings of Power that airs, I'm going to talk about it on this channel along with various other discussion type videos. So consider watching if you just want more Rings of Power media and content in your subscription box. And like I said before, I'm also doing House of the Dragon videos. So if you're more of a fantasy fan, not just a fan of Rings of Power, but a fan of just various fantasy shows and universes, consider checking out my House of the Dragon series. I love A Song of Ice and Fire. It's my favorite universe, and yeah, I'm making videos on that as well. Again, thank you for watching, especially if you watched this far. And please let me know what you thought of the first episode in the comments.